So, what to do if you get a negative review on your online course? Take one. Here we go. I got a negative review. What do I do? What do I do, bro? Oh my gosh, that is how we feel when we get a negative review.
But
right?
we never get one.
But we never get one at eLearning Partners because we're great. But no, honestly, if you get a negative review, typically, what's the response, Anthony?
There's a couple really important steps you need to take, and I'll start with number one. Number one is when you first see the negative review, your heart's gonna start pumping. You might start sweating, and I'm just gonna say it how it is, you're probably gonna be pissed off. You've worked so hard to build the best online course that you possibly can, and how dare someone say that they don't find the value in it, or something incredibly negative that is just really demeaning. The internet is a really tough place to live, but the reality is, as you grow, you have to embrace that the negativity, the larger your course grows, the higher the likelihood that someone's going to post something that you don't like. Does that make sense, Hector?
That makes a lot of sense. And you know what, team? One thing that Anthony, Johnny, and I were talking about before we even hit the record on this video is that if you don't get a negative review, that means that you ain't doing it right. Because if you get a negative review, that means that you have grown. There's tons of people ingesting your content, and that is okay. But let me tell you something. This whole entire video is, if you do get a negative review, what to do and how you should manage and work through that. But first, we want to tell you about how to develop an online course or e-learning program in 90 days or less and save $10,000 in the process. And the way that you do that is simply click on the link below, because we got a free masterclass, and that's what that free masterclass is all about. So the first thing when you get a negative review, like Antonio Bandaras, aka Anthony Will, aka the master of reputation online, aka the CEO of Reputation Resolutions, like he said, the first thing is just don't panic. Right? Don't panic.
Don't panic. Take a deep breath and realize that no matter how negative the review is, there's always a solution to either removing that negativity or greatly minimizing the damage of it. To give you some context, I've been in reputation management for close to a decade now. We have helped thousands of companies remove tens of thousands of reviews from all major review platforms. Even if removal of the content is not a possibility, you can always respond to the review, you can work to suppress the review, and that's all what we're gonna go over on the video today.
Absolutely, right? You know, and like Anthony said, listen, team, we know it's stressful, right? And emotions get high, you know? When we get negative reviews, and I'm sure that you guys have seen negative reviews, it elicits an emotional response. Like you said earlier, you just get frustrated. Like, I've been putting my blood, sweat, and tears into this, and who dare this person who just interacted with me and my brand for not even 30 seconds to write something so negative, right? And it really, really hurts because you care. You love what you do, you're passionate about what you do, you have all these amazing positive reviews of people of how they've been impacted by your online course and e-learning program and what you've been doing, and for this person to say something so negative, oh, it's so frustrating. However, don't panic. So the first thing that you should do after not panicking is analyze the source of the review.
Correct.
Right, Anthony?
Exactly right. So what a lot of people don't realize is that negative reviews can in fact be removed. Like I said, our company, this is what we specialize in. We have removed reviews from all major review sites, and what you need to know is that the ability to achieve removal of content from a particular review site is directly tied to that review site's guidelines, policies, and terms of service. So the first step that you need to do if you do get a negative review is go on Google and type in the review site and guidelines or community guidelines. That should bring up a page that shows you an overview on what's allowed on that platform and what's not allowed. Once you determine the community guidelines of that particular review site, you want to analyze those guidelines directly to what type of negative content that you're currently seeing. Oftentimes, there are situations where the review itself is just constructive feedback. And that constructive feedback may be negative, but you might not be able to get it removed. But we also see, and this is where removal comes in to play, if someone's posting false or defamatory or very egregious content, there very likely might be an approach where you can correspond with the review site itself that hosts the review, reach out to them, and make an argument or a petition as to why that content should be removed from their platform. And what you'll find with most major review sites that currently exist, they do have what we call content moderation teams, where once you submit a request to get a review removed, you'll typically have a real human being analyze the situation, and they'll make a decision as to whether or not that review should be removed from their platform. Now, once you go through that process, in the event that that review is removed, that is absolute best case scenario. But you have to go into it knowing that there is a good to decent chance that that review actually might not ever be taken down. So let's talk about what happens when, say, a negative review is posted, but the review is actually within the review site's guidelines. Obviously, it can be very stressful to realize that that's publicly available, but there's always going to be alternate strategies and solutions. One of the first things that you should do if a review site rejects your petition or request for removal is analyze who left that review in the first place. On most review sites, you will be able to identify with a first name, last name as to, was this someone that you had signed up for your course, that you have in maybe your CRM? Could this be a competitor that's out to get you? On occasion, we do see that where competitors are trying to essentially tarnish each other's reputations. So if you do recognize the name of the reviewer that has posted a negative review, it really comes down to a customer service experience and situation. If you have their contact information, a phone number or email, what you're going to want to do is reach out to them. You're going to want to reach out in a way that is amicable. You never want to reach out to someone that has left a negative review, they had a bad experience, and come at it in an aggressive type of way, or some way that might reference legal action or things like that, which we see a lot of. That is the worst decision that you could ever make, quite frankly. You want to approach this with an open mind. You want to have a conversation, ideally over the phone with this person, and you want to apologize. Even if you feel that you are 100% in the right or this person is being incredibly irrational, you want to start the phone call by saying, I am so sorry for the experience that you had with my course. I want to learn more about how I can improve and make this situation better for you. And do you mind just telling me about your experience and why you specifically said, XYZ, referencing whatever was coming up in the review? And just start by hearing them out. These people, most of the time when they're leaving a negative review, they are just venting. They had a bad experience, they're being emotional about that. So you want to give that person the platform, again, ideally over a phone call, to explain why they were upset. Again, put your customer service hat on. You are wanting to make sure that you understand exactly what their issue was and work to a solution to fix the problem. Whether that be a full refund or ask them, is there anything that we can do to make it right? And 99% of the time, they'll give you some sort of solution that they will be happy with. And for courses specifically, if someone's upset and they paid money, if you offer them a full refund on their fee, if say they didn't find value in their course or it wasn't the right fit for them, that very likely will help tame the entire situation. They'll be happy with the solution. And If they are happy with that solution, you can ask them, hey, I've done everything that I can to make this situation right. Would you be open to editing or removing that very negative review? Because this is my livelihood, this is my business, and I'm really trying to do my best to offer the best course possible to my clients and customers. And I think that's really the best way to approach any sort of negative review that can't be removed. Does that make sense, Hector?
That makes complete sense. What I'm hearing is just first of all, not letting your emotions take over you, right? And approaching that person that left that negative review and just being authentic, right? Like listening to them, even though they may sound irrational or they may even be irrational, you may disagree with them. Remember, like Anthony said, they're lashing out, right? There's something going on, right? Approach to them that you care about them, you care about how they feel, you care about their voice, and that will only transform into wonderful results, which is a question I wanted to ask you, Anthony. In your experience as the online reputation guru, as the leader of a company that is one of the best companies, literally team, one of the best companies around the world when it comes to online reputation management, when you do those strategies, when you approach it that way like you expressed, what's the succession rate? What is the succession rate of people taking down that negative review that they ultimately left?
It's obviously case specific. It depends on who's leaving the review, what they're saying. So it's hard to put a success rate to this, but historically speaking, if you're looking out for the best interest of your clients or in customers that are buying your course, and you're being genuine and authentic, and you're being very, apologetic and cordial with your conversation, humans are humans. They will likely understand that, hey, maybe you made a mistake, or maybe we're just not the right fit, and they'll probably be willing to, like I said, remove or edit their review. And this is a good segue into a situation where a negative review comes in, you reach out to the review site to try to get it removed based on violations of their policies, they reject that. You then try to figure out, can you contact this person? If you can, you have that conversation to see if you can fix it. Oftentimes, and this might be the case for you, you have no idea who posted this review, and that's even more frustrating. So what option do you have left? There's two things that you can do that are incredibly important. Most review sites allow companies to claim their profiles. By claiming your profile, and again, this is most review sites, if not every major review site, you have the ability to respond to reviews. So you have to think about responses from not necessarily appeasing the customer itself, although of course you want to keep that in mind, but your response is going to be publicly available. So anyone that's searching for you online and sees this negative review, you want to make sure that your response not only addresses that particular customer or client, but also addresses everyone that's interested in your course that's looking at that negativity. There has been numerous studies that have shown that companies, or in this case, people that run courses that respond to negativity, that potential customer of yours is much more likely to want to work with you because you have addressed that negative feedback. One of the worst mistakes that you can make is just leaving that negativity there and never addressing it. That will cause you significant reputational harm and likely impact the sales of your course. So review responses are going to be incredibly important. And also, this is getting back to what we've talked about in another video, Hector, where the overall perception on your reputation is largely based off an aggregate review score based off what people have said consistently over time. So what you want to do immediately, or if you're not doing it already, you need to have a process in place to consistently generate positive reviews from people that are happy with your course, which is probably the vast majority of everyone that is paying to engage, with your course over time. So by consistently generating positive reviews, say you have 20 4 or 5-star positive reviews, and you have that one person that's disgruntled for some reason that posts that 1 star, the damage and the reputational harm of that 1 star is significantly mitigated due to the fact that you've already had and done a great job at building up all these positive reviews about your course. So hopefully that all is clear to everybody watching this, but hopefully that makes sense to you as well, Hector.
That makes so much sense, team. And you know, Anthony said so much golden content there, right? And one thing that I just want to reiterate, that I'm even going to write this here on the board, and you know what, Anthony, maybe we can just quickly summarize it again, that I feel like a lot of people, when we get negative reviews, we forget that we can analyze, which is the terms of service, right? I think that is so important because that's something that we easily forget. And honestly, from a habitual perspective, we're so used, you know, when you download an application, we're so used to clicking, I accept the terms and conditions and forgetting about it, right? But they're there for a reason, right? And I think that is something that we should really write down here and reiterate, which is always analyze the terms of service, because that is, in a way, Anthony, if I'm understanding right, this is your strategy on how you should approach that negative review, right? What are the constraints? Is this review even, can you even approach it? If you can't approach it, why can't you approach it? And if you can't approach it, what are the best steps to approaching it? Which, like Anthony said, which is reaching out to that person, trying to have a conversation, a human-to-human conversation. If they decide not to edit the review or remove it, then you respond to it. So even though it is live, me, Hector, for example, let's say I'm researching something, even though there's a negative review there, I see that the company did an effort of responding to that negative review instead of sweeping it under the rug. And that is just something, remember, team, there are terms. You have rights, okay? Always look at it, whenever you get a negative review, what can you utilize? What is in your power that you can utilize to mitigate that negative review, take that negative review down, or approach that person that wrote that negative review and figure out how to mitigate it as a whole?
Absolutely. I have something also incredibly important to add to negative reviews. There are going to be many negative reviews that are published on the internet that are constructive. In many ways, a negative review can actually be a blessing in disguise. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of times where a negative review will give you constructive feedback, where maybe there's something that you didn't consider about your course, or maybe there's something within that negative review that you say, hey, maybe that person is right, and I should really consider their criticism about my course to ultimately make it better. And you must realize that, as we've discussed, Hector, the larger your course grows, the more visibility you have, the more customers you have, the more opinions you have. And not everybody is going to be in love with your course. So for the criticizers, the people that are posting that negativity, it is an opportunity to learn on how to improve everything that you have worked so hard to create. Like a business, there's always opportunities to evolve what you're doing. You never want to stay static. So take that feedback, even if it's negative, and implement that to make your course better. And that's all I have to say. Drop the pen.
Drop the pen, ladies and gentlemen.
And it's not a pen.
It is a marker, it is a mic, it is a whatever we want it to be. Remember, we got that free masterclass link below. Develop your course in 90 days or less. Save $10,000 in the process. And Anthony, what do we want to thank them for, my friend?
Thank you for your likes and subscribes. Best decision you made today.